Hello, my fellow technicians, viewers, and subscribers. My name is Tech, and you are all welcome to my new repairing video. If you are watching my videos for the first time, please make sure to hit the subscribe button, like, share, and comment. Also hit on the notification bell so you get updated whenever I release educative contents like this, especially for my phone repairers and fellow technicians. On today's video, we are going to be repairing the SIM card reader of a Google Pixel 6 Pro that was given to me by another repair shop. Now, he said the client was trying to remove a SIM card from the phone and mistakenly cut off one of the SIM card reader pins. So, I had to take the phone to try and change the SIM card reader. If you check right there, you will see the first pin from the right hand on the first row is missing. This type of fault is very common when the client or the user of the mobile phone has the habit of swapping SIM cards at random. You always end up with this type of problems. Now, most phones have an option of using a second SIM as an eSIM. If you so much desire to use a second SIM, you can rush to your nearby operator to install you an eSIM on the phone so you can use as a secondary SIM rather than swapping SIM cards on and off. You always end up destroying your SIM card reader like in this situation. For this repair, I'll be using the iX5 Ultra preheater from Mechanics. This preheater is very important because it makes the job very easy. It avoids you heating the PCB for a prolonged period of time. This preheater has a heating capacity of up to 220 degrees, and it's really important because you are working on a PCB that is practically powering on. You don't want to end up with a situation where the client starts telling you, I need you to put my phone back as it was when I gave you. I will manage it like that. So in this situation, if you notice the way I placed the PCB on the preheater, I shifted the area which has the power manager ICs out of the preheater so as to avoid any open circuit under the power manager ICs, because all I wanted to do on this PCB was just to repair the SIM card, to replace the SIM card reader. I didn't want to end up repairing other stuff on the phone, so I had to be very careful. So what this preheater does is it supplies you with heat from under the PCB. Now you just have to apply a little bit of heat from your rework station so you can remove the SIM card reader or the component that you want without applying too much heat or heating for longer period of time, because there are inner layers on this PCB which the heat might also affect and cause you open circuit. You don't want to end up with a situation like this, so you have to be very careful when heating. At first, I used to be very scared when trying to change components like this with plastic elements on it, such as these SIM card readers, FPC connectors, and every other component on a PCB that has a plastic element on it. I used to be very scared because by then I did not know you could regulate the temperature and airflow from your rework station based on the type of component you are working on. So when you know all these settings, it is very easy for you to do certain jobs that you first of all saw as being very, very difficult. Knowledge is really power, as they say, because with the knowledge I've acquired so far, there are plastic connectors that have been replacing lately without having any difficulties, simply because I know the right airflow to use and the adequate temperature to use. Now, most people watch repair videos online and they go about asking the temperature used and the airflow. What you need to do is master your own rework station, because every rework station is not the same. For my rework station, I might use a certain temperature of 350 degrees. Why for you might need to tune up to 400 and something, or 380 something, or for some others you might be 300. So all the rework stations are not the same, so you need to master your own rework station when using it. For this video, I'll be using the Simcard H1 soldering pen, which has really enhanced my soldering experience since I got this from China. It comes with a 65 watt DC power supply adapter, which enables the soldering iron to heat up within a very short period of time once connected to the power adapter. It takes just 1.8 seconds to heat up. It will interest you to know that the Simcard H1 soldering pen uses the C210 tip, which is most compatible with all the recent soldering stations available on the market right now. So there is no fear of the fact that what if my soldering tip gets bad, how am I going to get another one? It's available in the local markets already in my area. I don't know about your area. So this soldering pen is very effective and budget friendly if you don't have enough money to get the bigger soldering stations. Alright, so after you must have removed the old Simcard reader that was bad, the next thing you need to do is to tin the part with a low melt solder paste of about 180 degrees. The reason you're doing this is such that when you want to desolder the old solder paste from the bonding parts, it comes off very easily with your desoldering wick. Now you are desoldering these parts because you want to replace them with a low melt solder paste, so that when you want to replace the SIM card reader or the FPC connector you might be working on, you don't get to hit the PCB for so long or hit the connector or the SIM card reader for long period of time, because if you apply too much heat, you might end up damaging the PCB. Remember, this is a PCB that is turning on. It just don't read SIM card because of a physical damage. So you have to be very careful and very mindful when working on this type of PCBs. You don't want to end up with problems from the client. So replacing the solder, the old solder with the new solder is because you heat the PCB for a very short period of time and the solder would bond with the parts very easily without you heating up everything and causing open circuits under nearby ICs or components. Now it's also very important to clean the parts so you see everything clearly before you proceed. Make sure you always clean the parts when you do any desoldering or soldering, so you see if the parts are fully bonded. Now if you watch from the video, you see me applying a low melt solder paste on the parts. That is 130 degrees solder paste. And also when working with micro components like this, that is doing micro soldering, the flux is your best company because it's only the flux that makes the solder flows very easily, because the flux separates any dirt that is found on the part and makes the solder flow on the parts very easily. So if you're into micro soldering, the flux is supposed to be your best companion when you're working on micro components like this. And like I said, after replacing the the solder on the parts, you need to clean to see if everything is okay and set, so you go about replacing the new SIM card reader. It's very important to always clean. Now if you check right there, that was the SIM card reader that I was about to replace, and this was the one that was bad that I removed from the PCB. The other SIM card reader, I got it from a donor board that I had at home because I have so many of these PCBs. So I just had to pull it off from another donor board and replace. The next thing to do is to apply now the flux on the parts before you place the SIM card reader for heating. So like I told you before, the flux is very important because it is what makes the solder bond with the parts easily. So you have to pay attention to this and make sure the flux is always your best companion when working with microchips and solder joints. So the next thing to do was to replace the nozzle on my rework station to use a bigger nozzle because I want the heat to spread on a larger surface. So I had to take off the smaller nozzle and use the bigger nozzle so the jobs get done faster and accurately. You don't want to mess up the job after you've done everything correctly, and at the last stage of the job you get to mess it up. So once more, apply our flux, then we take the the SIM card reader, the donor SIM card reader from another board. It is very important that you place the SIM card reader on the parts before heating up. It is very important because once you start heating up and the solder parts melt off, it is very difficult for you to place them, because one little shake you might push and peel off components around it. So you have to take your time to position it very well before you start heating up. So once the heat circulates on under the parts, it just goes down and bond to the bonding parts on the PCB itself. So if you take a look right there, you will see the nozzle I'm trying to use. This is from mechanic. Their tools are always good. I got a set of them, so I had to use the bigger nozzle for this particular process. Once you have perfectly aligned the SIM card reader or the FPC connector you are about to replace with the bonding part on the PCB, you can start heating up the PCB with the set temperature. Now pay attention, you have replaced the old solder with a low solder paste, so you don't need to apply too much heat because the solder paste has a very low melting point. So you have to be very careful also not to heat too much so it loses its bonding capacity. If you are wondering what temperature and what airflow I'm using, for my workstation I'm using 390 degrees and 30% airflow. So like I said, it's very different for every rework station, so you need to master your rework station and know your airflow and the temperature. The amount of heat coming out from your rework station will help you determine how much temperature and airflow to use depending on the type of job you're doing, especially FPC connectors, which are very sensitive to heat because they have plastic elements that can easily melt off. So it is good to master your rework station rather than using someone's preset. Now when the SIM card reader or the FPC connector is fully set, when you already heated, you need to add a little bit of the same low melt solder paste on the parts, so that you have to thin the parts with your soldering iron for them to have a good connection or bonding and a good solder joint. Now we are very lucky for this SIM card reader replacement because the parts, the solder joints are not under the SIM card reader on the PCB. It is right at the outward layer of the SIM card reader, so the soldering iron can reach it very easy, and we can fully confirm that all the solder parts are fully bonded and made a good solder joint. So this was a very lucky process as well, because there are other SIM card readers where the bonding parts are found under the SIM card reader itself and attached to the PCB, which makes it very difficult to do such final bondings. You need to be precise. So when done, you need to try to cool off the PCB a bit, then you give it a test. Now if you take a look at the bit mapping, you will understand what I was saying. Those are the parts I was trying to bond, so they have a good solder joint and a good connection with the SIM card reader. The first pin there is ground and the other pins have an ohm reading, which you need to verify to make sure that everything and every part has fully bonded. If you check from the bit mapping, you will notice that all those parts are connected, most of the parts are connected to this IC directly, which should be the baseband PM IC. Now we don't have a guideline for this model, just the bit mapping, so it was helpful in one way or the other. So right there, I was trying to set my multimeter in such a way that you can actually see the readings when I'm measuring. Now remember, I'm making this video recording with my phone because the camera I bought for my microscope is not synchronizing the zoom with the eyepiece and the camera setup on OBS. So I'm waiting for my mentor to come and help me set it up. So I had to take the readings on the parts. Remember, the first part was ground and the second part was directly from the VPH, and then the other parts were from the baseband PMIC. So every part was reading correctly, which meant every part of this SIM card reader had bonded well and they had a good solder joint. So now it was time to mount back the PCB to test if everything was okay. Now remember, like I said before, repairs like this scared me at the beginning, but the most important thing is to know your airflow, know your rework station, and know how much temperature you're supposed to use when working with FPC connectors, when working with ICs, and so on. Temperature control is very vital when doing micro soldering. It's very, very important, without which you get to damage so many things on PCBs if you don't use the right air. It is very important to know your own rework station rather than depending on people's preset air and temperature they use for their own, because you don't have the same as them. Even if you have the same rework station as them, you might be in a position where your current is low. Maybe you have a low voltage and it might not be supplying enough current to heat up the rework station, while some other person has a very good current at their own position. So master your rework station and know how to manage it. It is very important. So just like that, I had to turn on the PCB and wait for it to boot up. Alright, so for some reason the light from my microscope was kind of reflecting too much on the screen, so I had to turn it off, but it came back on, so I just had to allow it. Now the next thing was for me to insert the SIM card to see if it's going to read and if our hard work finally paid off or not. So when I inserted the SIM card on the first try, I realized that the SIM card didn't read. I was like, oh, all this carefulness and everything I've done was for nothing. Then I had to troubleshoot offline and see that all I needed to do was to insert the SIM card and reboot the phone. So now I had to power the phone again the second time to show you guys. If you check right up there, it was showing emergency and no SIM. So when I inserted the SIM, if you take a look right there, the SIM card did not still read. So the only thing that I needed to do here, if you take a look right there, you'll see I just need to do a restart on the phone and wait for it to boot up again the second time. So just be patient right there. We'll get the results very soon. This is a very difficult part when you're done and it feels like the job is not done, so you're waiting for results. And right there, the phone booted up, and if you take a look right now at the network bar, you will see we have the indomitable best 4G network. That's our network here in Cameroon. I don't know which country you're watching from. So if you take a look right there, everything was okay and working. So if you have been watching right up to this extent, I want to say thank you very much, and stay tuned for more repair videos and educative videos like this from me. I really thank you very much for staying right up to this extent.